HBO's The Last of Us is all the rage right now, and that got me thinking back to The Last of Us Part 2. After the almost universal love for the first game, people were excited to see what Naughty Dog could do with his sequel. And when the game came out, it had a pretty mixed reception. It seemed like you either loved it or you hated it. I personally was pretty disappointed with it, but I don't want to make it seem like it was all bad. There was still plenty of good things about it. It has beautiful graphics with some stunning cinematic shots. The puzzles keep the whole game feeling fresh, and the attention to detail is insane. Pretty early in the game, we walk through Jackson, and all the small little details really flush out the town and make it feel realistic. This kind of quality is kept up for the whole entire game. Even the tutorials are done well. This game has a mechanic where you can throw objects at people, so how does the game teach you how to do this? With a snowball fight. How awesome is that? Generally, anything gameplay related was done really well. My problem with the game was the story. Before we really dive into this, I want to give a spoiler warning for The Last of Us Part 2, Naruto Shippuden the Pain Arc, and The Walking Dead Seasons 4 and 5, which I understand is an insane combo, but just trust me. With all that out of the way, I want to quickly go over a recap of The Last of Us Part 2. Feel free to skip ahead if you're pretty familiar with the story. I'm going to put timestamps in the description below, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. This game takes place 4 years after the events of the first game. Ellie and Joel now live in a thriving town called Jackson, located in Wyoming. Ellie and Joel have become distant because Ellie learned that Joel chose her over the cure. We meet some new characters. Dina, who eventually becomes Ellie's girlfriend, and Jesse, who is Ellie's friend and was until recently dating Dina. We then switch to Abby, who is the daughter of the doctor from the last game. She has traveled to Jackson with a group of her friends that are also former Fireflies from Salt Lake City, so let's just call this group the Salt Lake Crew. Abby finds Joel and Joel's brother Tommy and brings them to the rest of the Salt Lake Crew. They catch them off guard and start to beat Joel. Meanwhile, Jesse finds Ellie and Dina and tells them that the brothers are missing. The three split up to look for them. Ellie finds them first but can't do anything to stop the Salt Lake Crew and watches as Abby kills Joel. The Salt Lake Crew spare Ellie and Tommy and go back to Seattle where they are from. Tommy decides to go after Abby, with Dina and Ellie following shortly after. After tracking down a few of the Salt Lake Crew, Ellie learns that Abby has been using the aquarium as a home base. A few things have happened though. Dina is revealed to be pregnant, and so the girls have been using a theater as a home base. Also, while looking for Tommy, Ellie finds that Jesse has also joined them in Seattle. Jesse wants to go back to Jackson because he is worried about Dina. Ellie agrees but wants to find Tommy so they can all go back together. Ellie and Jesse decide to go to the aquarium, hoping they can find Tommy there. Ellie splits up from Jesse and goes to the aquarium where she finds two members of the Salt Lake Crew, Mel and Owen. She interrogates them for information on Abby, but they fight back and she kills them both. Jesse and Tommy grab her and they head back to the theater, but Ellie leaves her map. Back at the theater, Jesse and Ellie hear a noise and go to investigate it. Jesse is killed and Ellie finds Abby holding Tommy at gunpoint. Abby forces Ellie to surrender, and we now go back to the first day Ellie and Dina were in Seattle, this time from Abby's perspective. We learn that in Seattle there are two main factions that are at war with each other. There's the WLF, which is a militaristic group that the Salt Lake Crew is a part of, and there are the Scars, which is more like a religious cult. The leader of the WLF, Isaac, is planning to launch an all-out attack on the Scars Island and wants Abby to help lead the attack. Abby has learned that Owen has basically gone AWOL after refusing to kill an elderly Scar, and so she wants to go after him instead. Abby knows that Owen would hide in the aquarium, so she heads off in that direction. On the way there, she is captured by Scars. Before she can be killed, she is saved by two Scar children named Yara and Lev, that have been named apostates and have been cast out from the Scars. In the process, though, Yara had her arm broken. Abby leads the two Scars to an abandoned trailer and then heads to the aquarium. There she finds a drunk Owen who explains that he plans to go to Santa Barbara to find the last remaining Fireflies. Abby spends the night with him but has nightmares about the Scar children. The next day, feeling guilty, she goes to the trailer and then brings them to the aquarium. Mel has also arrived at the aquarium. After a hospital run to get medical supplies, Mel amputates Yara's arm to save her. The next day, Owen offers to bring Yara and Lev to Santa Barbara with him. Lev, wanting to bring their mother, takes off to the Scar Island though. All the Scars want to kill Lev, and the WLF is about to launch their attack, so Abby and Yara go after Lev. Once on the island, Yara sacrifices herself so that Abby and Lev can escape. The pair go back to the aquarium where they find Owen and Mel dead. Lev finds the map that Ellie dropped and they head over to the theater. There they catch Tommy by surprise, and we have caught back up to where we were before we switched to Abby. Abby and Ellie fight for a while until Abby gets the upper hand. Dina gets involved but is shortly taken down by Abby and Lev. Abby is about to kill Dina, but Lev talks her out of it. Abby takes off with Lev and warns Ellie never to cross her again. We then switch back to Ellie about a year later. Ellie, Dina, and Dina's son named JJ live in a farm outside of Jackson. They seem to have a happy life, but Ellie still has PTSD and panic attacks from Joel's death and the events of Seattle. Tommy visits and informs Ellie about a lead matching Abby and Lev's description in Santa Barbara. Dina begs Ellie not to go, but Ellie ignores her. We switch back to Abby. Her and Lev are in Santa Barbara and find an abandoned Firefly base where they contact some Fireflies and are told where to rendezvous. On the way out of the base, Abby and Lev are captured by a group called the Rattlers that are basically slavers. We then switch back to Ellie, who is now in Santa Barbara. On the way to the Firefly base, Ellie is also captured by the same group of Rattlers, but she is able to escape and learn that Abby was captured a few months ago. Ellie runs through the Rattler base and frees all the prisoners and learns that Abby is down at the Pillars. On the beach, Ellie finds a malnourished and sunburned Abby. Ellie cuts her down, and right before Abby is about to escape, Ellie forces her to fight her by threatening Lev. The two have a pretty brutal fight. Abby bites off some of Ellie's fingers, but Ellie can finish the fight by drowning Abby. At the last second, though, Ellie chooses to spare Abby and allows her to sail away with Lev. We then go back to the farm outside of Jackson. Ellie walks in and finds Dina and JJ have left. Ellie tries to play the guitar that she got from Joel, but is unable to because of her missing fingers. Ellie thinks back to the night before Joel died, where the two decided to repair their relationship. The game then ends with Ellie leaving the farm. The first problem I have with this game is Abby. Naughty Dog wants you to like Abby. All of her weapons are basically just better versions of Ellie's. Instead of a hunting rifle, Abby gets a semi-auto rifle. Instead of a bow and arrow, Abby gets a crossbow. Instead of Molotov cocktails, Abby gets a flamethrower. You get the point. We get some good moments when Abby interacts with other characters, especially Yara and Lev, that make her endearing in her own kind of way. But I think the best moment is when Lev and Abby go to the hospital because in order to get there in time, they have to use the sky bridges that the Scars use. Abby is terrified of heights, so she drops her rough and tough exterior and allows herself to be vulnerable to Lev. They had some great conversations about what they're afraid of and their backgrounds, and I loved this change where Lev was almost taking care of Abby instead of the other way around. All these hours of us following Abby should have made her a likable character, but one of the most important things with characters is their introduction. Unfortunately, Abby's first real introduction is her killing Joel. So the character of Abby is always facing an uphill battle when it comes to being likable. I actually think this is a relatively easy fix. When we switch to Abby for the first time at the beginning of the game, we could instead go to the first flashback we get of Abby. This flashback starts with Abby finding her dad and then the two of them along with Owen saving a zebra. Abby's dad is called back to the hospital because this flashback takes place during the finale of the first game. Abby's dad is in favor of making the cure but is conflicted, and Abby has to reassure him he is doing the right thing. We then see the aftermath of Joel's actions from Abby's perspective. I think this would be a much better first impression of Abby because we would see that her dad was a good guy and had a great relationship with her, so we would understand why Abby hates Joel so much. And while I don't think this would magically make people like her because she would still kill Joel, the character that we followed in the first game, I think this would at least give her character a chance to be liked. The next problem is not such an easy fix. As soon as Abby killed Joel and Ellie decided to go after her, we were set on a course that could go in two opposite directions. Ellie could either get revenge or she could forgive her. Before we talk about the direction Naughty Dog chose to go, let's look at what makes a good revenge story and a good forgiveness story by looking at The Walking Dead and Naruto. If anyone hasn't seen The Walking Dead, it takes place in Georgia after a zombie outbreak. Our main character is Rick, but by season 4 we have a variety of other members in Rick's group. After some events, Rick's group is split up, and the second half of season 4 follows the members of Rick's group as they all head to a settlement called Terminus. Because there are signs all over the place for Terminus, the individual members of Rick's group hope the others will also head there and they can reunite. The season 4 finale follows Rick, his son Carl, Michonne, and Daryl. They finally make their way to Terminus, but before they go into the settlement, they bury a duffel bag of weapons outside of Terminus. They go to the settlement and everything seems fine. They're even offered some food. But Rick notices the people of Terminus have some items that belong to the other members of his group. Rick tries to take a hostage, but this kind of just devolves into Rick and the others running away. Eventually, they run into a dead end and they are forced into train cars where they find the rest of their group, which ends season 4. We learn that the people of Terminus are actually cannibals, and they advertise Terminus so stragglers go to the settlement where they are captured and are eventually eaten. Season 5 picks up with Rick and some of the others about to be killed. As they're preparing for their execution, Gareth, the leader of Terminus, asks Rick what was in the bag he hid in the woods. Rick lists a bunch of weapons and then says,
"A machete with a red handle. That's what I'm gonna use to kill you."
Before Rick and the others can be executed, another member of the group, Carol, creates a big distraction, which allows Rick and the whole group to escape Terminus. Once they are safe, they find shelter in a church and go on a supply run. On the supply run, one of the group, Bob, is bitten and then later captured by the remaining people from Terminus. They eat Bob's leg, but once Bob reveals he was bitten, they drop him off at the church. Rick and the others now know that the Terminus people are still hunting them, so they decide to go after them, leaving a few adults, Bob, and the children at the church. The Terminus people storm into the church and are about to knock down the door that leads to the back of the church where Rick's group is located. But a few of the Terminus people are shot and the rest of Rick's group that was supposed to be away appear. They hold the Terminus people at gunpoint and force them to surrender. Gareth tries to plead with Rick to let them go, and he says there has to be a reason why they didn't just shoot them all right away. Rick then says this:
"We didn't want to waste the bullets. Besides, I already made you a promise."
Rick and his group then take out the Terminus people. This is really satisfying, partly because Rick being able to keep his promise with the red-handled machete is great, but mainly because the Terminus people are really easy to hate. They're cannibals that were actively tricking people to capture them, imprison them, and then eat them. At no point do we empathize with them or really like them. And when we compare this with The Last of Us Part 2, we can see what went wrong with the game. As soon as we switched to Abby's point of view, the idea of this being a good revenge story was destroyed, because we get all these moments that make us empathize with Abby, so even at the end, if Ellie would have killed her, I don't think it would have been as satisfying. But that's okay, because maybe the game went the opposite direction and it's a good forgiveness story instead, and to see if that's the case, let's look at Naruto Shippuden, specifically the Pain arc. At the start of this arc, we have a group called the Akatsuki who is trying to capture our main character, Naruto. Naruto's master, Jiraiya, gets a lead about the leader of the Akatsuki, named Pain. We later learn that Pain is this man, but because he is physically weak, he fights by controlling these 6 different bodies. Jiraiya goes after Pain, and it turns out Pain is a former student of Jiraiya. The two battle, and Jiraiya is killed by Pain, but he is able to get a message back to Naruto's village. Naruto is devastated about the news about his master, and it is decided that Naruto needs to go train to get stronger to take on Pain. While he is away training, Pain attacks his village and pretty much annihilates it. Things look pretty grim, but Naruto is summoned and ready to take on Pain. The two fight, and Naruto seems to be doing pretty well until Pain pins him down. This is where we get a great speech from Pain explaining the cycle of hatred. He basically explains that if Naruto killed him because he killed Naruto's master and destroyed his village, then Pain's friends would try to kill Naruto, and Naruto's friends would try to kill Pain's friends in return, and so on and so forth, leading to an endless cycle of hatred. Pain explains that this cycle is what has caused many wars and distrust between the different nations. He then asks Naruto what he would do to fix this, because Naruto earlier said he wants to bring peace to the world. And Naruto can't really give an answer. They fight a little more, and Naruto is able to track down where the real Pain is. Naruto decides to talk it out with Pain and hear his story. They also talk about Jiraiya, who wanted a more peaceful world. Pain thinks this is just wishful thinking, while Naruto is determined to become leader of his village and make Jiraiya's vision a reality. After hearing Pain's story, Naruto still hates him, but believes in Jiraiya's ideology, so he decides to spare him. Naruto then implores Pain to put his trust in him, and he reads a quote from a book Jiraiya wrote. This quote is actually from a younger, more optimistic Pain before some traumatic events in his life changed him. This, combined with Naruto choosing to let him live, changes his mind, and he ends up sacrificing himself to revive everyone in Naruto's village that was killed. I think this is a great example of a forgiveness story for two main reasons. Our main character learned a valuable lesson, and he backed up his peaceful ideology by not killing Pain. When we compare this to The Last of Us Part 2, Ellie also chooses not to kill Abby, so maybe we could say that she discovered that revenge is pointless and decided to back up that idea by allowing Abby to live. But that argument kind of falls apart when we remember that Ellie killed hundreds of WLF and SCAR members in pretty brutal ways. Even worse, she killed 4 members of the Salt Lake crew, including a pregnant Mel. All throughout the game, Ellie was willing to do these horrible things because of her overwhelming desire to get revenge on Abby. So I don't think a last-second change to allowing Abby to live does enough to classify The Last of Us Part 2 as a good forgiveness story either. I said earlier that as soon as Ellie took off after Abby, we could go two ways, either a revenge story or a forgiveness story. Well, I guess I was wrong, because it turns out we could do what the writers decided and we could go a third way. We could not fully commit to either direction. We could start off as a revenge story and then switch to our antagonist and make her a secondary protagonist and try to make you like her. Then we could switch to a forgiveness story at the last second because we hope you like the secondary protagonist enough that you'll be happy with this outcome. But because we made the introduction of our secondary protagonist being her killing a beloved character, that probably won't happen. So instead, we get all the consequences of a revenge story with none of the payoff of killing the antagonist. And to me, that's the problem with The Last of Us Part 2. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. It would really help me out. Finally, thank you for watching.